Morning, another founder in car, and today a real cold start. Suzuki Swift Sport Hybrid ZC33S. And why is it a real cold start? Because it's becoming more and more cold outside in the Netherlands. We had the earliest, how do you say this, frozen ground of this year, and it's still okay. It's not extremely cold, but it's not long with the summer vibes that we had. It's like the seasons are altering, and that we only have a very long autumn and then a very long summer. It looks a little bit like that we are losing spring and winter also into a degree, because the extreme cold is also gone. But that means that we in the Netherlands have a lot of rain during autumn time and a lot of dry periods during the summer, and that is something to take into consideration also with your garden. For example, we had a garden with a, how do you say that, a part that was covered by a roof so that you could be protected against the sun and also rain. Then we moved the new house everywhere that the sun could come. It was very pleasant during summer, although some people had a little bit too much sun because they prefer the shade. So for those people it was a little bit too much, but for us this was a good thing. But now, when a rainy period is approaching, this is no longer such a good thing, of course. And why is that? Because you cannot enjoy the garden because you will be rained upon all the time. And that's something that you can also take in your own consideration. Being for your garden or other purposes. Do you really need all that sun, or would you be better off with a little bit of shade? So another video, and today we'll discuss a dog topic, and that is, why do the Bull&Terriers, the original game dogs, have so much gameness, whereas other breeds are lacking gameness to a degree? And for me, I have a different opinion than many of you might have, but for me it is the result because they have gameness from the bulldog and more of the molosser type of gameness, and they were selected for that. So many people will tell you they are all bulldogs, but I don't agree. And they also have gameness from the terrier, so those dogs that worked below ground against formidable quarry, especially the badger, is nothing to sneer at, especially when you're pin-sized like many terriers are. So, contrary to many people, I really believe that there is also terrier blood infused in the Bull&Terrier. And first off, I will tell you a little bit about the bulldog. The original bulldog was the furthest evolution of de fighting molosser in the size.
Sla hieraf naar rechts.
Let's see. I think I need to go to the other side again. There we go. One more. Sorry. So it was the ultimate evolution of the fighting molosser. And why is that? First they had bigger molosses, and those bigger molosses were quite capable. They had the mass with them, but they were outlawed because the normal common people should not be allowed to have such big strong dogs, and also they were quite expensive in upkeep because a big dog eats a lot to cover its mass and its muscles, etc. Another thing to consider is that the fighting went a little bit less sources. So, for example, bear baiting was outlawed, which would need
Volg de
normally
weg 61
a
kilometer.
bigger type of dog because a bear is very big. But they went to more of a cattle approach. Also, bull is a formidable opponent, but there is something else with the bull. When a dog engages with the bull normally tries to shake it off. And by doing so, by trying to shake off the dog, they get a lot of force in. And when you weigh more, normally this can be a benefit. For example, against a hawk, that a hawk cannot just ragdoll you. A bigger dog would be a benefit, for example, Molossus. But with a bull that being so strong, even the bigger dogs were able to lift and try to shake off. And then there comes a lot of force on that dog. And then a smaller dog, like the bulldog, would be beneficial. Why? It could be shaken at least as vigorously, more vigorously, because it's a lighter type of dog, but also the strain on the neck and the jaw were not that much more excessive, while it would be easier for the dog to maintain control and to get all those conflicting forces handled. And that gave rise to the bulldog. So the reasons they needed a smaller type of dog due to legislation and ruling. Also, they carry to a little bit different type of quarry, being especially the bull baiting. Sometimes also butchers bait them for this spectacle, not only for the people, but also they believe that the bull meat was better once it was worked over by the bulldogs. And this type of dog was the main ancestor of the Bull&Terrier, because this dog was bred for combat. In later stage they also used those dogs against each other, and not often, but also not very rare, there were even very small bulldogs being used in a rat pit. And in a rat pit they had a different task. Of course they had the task to combat the rats, like they had from dog to dog, but they had a time period, and sometimes this was also when dog-to-dog contests were held, and then they were counting how many rats they would kill for the size of the dog. So it was divided by the weight of the dog. So this would also trigger a dog to being as good and capable as possible for a lightweight. Also, if you look at the canine interaction, they had weight classes. So your best bet was not a very big dog, big heavy dog, because then you could not compete because the others would have lighter dogs. But also, if your dog was fat, for example, or non-functional for its weight, it would go up against a far bigger dog. So this also prompted a very high power to weight ratio. A very capable dog, despite its size, it was still medium or small even. Then if you look at the terriers were hunting dogs. One sidestep, also the bulldog after a while found its way into the hunting aficionado. Why? Because the Molossus, the bears were used for this purpose, but also the bulldogs and the Bull&Terriers. Why? Because they were very capable of handling and combat. So as a catch dog they were very capable. And that led to crosses, sometimes with Molossus making band dogs, but also led to pure bulldogs, pure Bull&Terriers being used in the hunting, for example, of hawks, etc. Also sometimes crossed with long dogs, so dogs that were running dogs, very fast, for example the greyhound. A modern day example would be the bull grey, which is a very fast dog but also capable of combating bigger quarry, for example deer, and sometimes even hawks, so swine. So back to the topic, the terrier is a pure hunting type of dog, so normally it's being used underground. Terrier means dog that goes below, terra is earth, etc. Earth dogs. So these dogs were bred to combat their opponent. And then you have different type of terriers. Some terriers are more of the baying type, so they try to keep the quarry busy. So for example, the fox or the badger by barking it and sometimes biting and irritating it, just keeping it busy. But there were also some dogs that were bred to really engage. So to be a little catch dog on the ground and keep the badger or fox or whatever from bolting, so jumping out of its hole, or otherwise escaping by digging another burrow or another escape way. But especially the badger is a formidable quarry, and they engage that despite being quite small, because you need a small size to follow foxes and badgers, and they would love to have a dog that could do both. So the smaller the dog, the easier the entry would be and the faster they could engage. But you need some size to also combat the badger, otherwise you get overrun and the badger rips you apart. Even the dogs that were of badger lines oftentimes died by the hands of and the paws and the jaws of the badger. Badger is part of the marten family, so Mustelidae, and martens, you should know, are of all mammals the highest power to weight there are. So that is the reason why a weasel of 100 grams can kill a rabbit of 10 times the size. And also otters are very strong, badgers are very strong, but also ermines, martens, ferrets, etc. are very capable and game dogs. They're also game animals. They are also, as I mentioned, they have a sort of natural gameness that they will engage even if they might die. And many other animals, once their life is in real peril, they will rather flee than fight. And the marten family is quite combative, so to say. So capable, and also a badger is more of an omnivore, so it eats animal-based products, but also eats, for example, corn and the likes. But it has very big, strong claws because it's a digging type of mammal. So like a little bit like a mole, it is able to dig, and those claws can also rip the intestines out of your dog, and very often also the part of the head, especially the lips or the jaws, are dislocated and torn off. So quite gruesome, but they bred terriers specifically to engage those opponents. Combine that with the red pit, which also had a large entry of terriers, more than the smaller bulldogs, and the intercrossing between, for example, bulldogs for the red pit and terriers, but also for the canine pit, so the dogs engaging each other. So for example, if you have a genetic base of gameness, so there's gameness in bulldogs and there's gameness in terriers, and for example the genetic base of bulldogs is more at my knuckle, so that are the genetic traits and the gameness influencing genes. But there are also genes, for example, more at my fingertips in the genome. That's more the gameness of terriers. Also terriers, you must know, especially those for the badger lines, were often intercrossed with bulldogs to make them more game and also more fighting able. So they had similar purposes, being a catch dog below ground or underground. It has similar attributes, so also similar type of dog could be beneficial. So therefore you see also a lot more bull, for example, border terrier or Patternal terrier than you see, for example, in a fox terrier. But even a fox terrier carries some bull blood to make them more gritty and capable. Terriers that had bull blood, a quarter or more, were often also very much prized as compared to those that did not. So that made quite some dynamics, and still they are very capable if you compare them to a terrier with none bull blood, which is hard to find, I will tell you. But it could be so little that it's diminutive, and then the higher bull content's often better if it's of So those dogs were then intertwined and developed. Another thing to consider is that if you have similar dogs for similar purposes but different blood, by intertwining them you often get a dog with a lighter frame and more muscle mass, more capability, and also a harder type of dog. This is known as heterosis. For example, if you crossbred a greyhound with a pure greyhound with a pure whippet, you get a dog that's quite close to the size of a greyhound, but lighter, more muscle mass compared to its weight, and almost as fast as a greyhound with a lot smaller frame. Some will even tell you that these dogs are faster in some situations. So you could get similar attributes when you have similar type of dogs, both catch dogs below and underground, both combative bred, and you interact them with each other, which is good for the canine to canine contest, because they want to have a lightest dog as possible, but also as much power as possible. So for their weight class they should be dominating. That would be the main goal, the end goal, so to say. So that also results, you have different set of genes that both have an impact on gameness. You have the heterosis in place, which is beneficial, and you have dogs that are both being bred for combat purposes, under harsh conditions, able to duke it out themselves. So in a dog-dog interactions, the dog and another dog engaged, there's no teamwork, and the same in earthwork. The only teamwork that they have is with humans. So for example, the earthwork, the terriers, they are being dug to, so that could save their life also when the burrow is collapsing and they're suffocating, but especially when they are engaging with the badger or the fox. And if you look at canine gladiators that are fighting in the dog pits, they had their handler at their sides, also a referee which was not influencing the dogs, and then you had the handler of the opponent dog, which was not on the side, of course, of the dog, because it wanted the other dog to lose and his dog to win. So that meant that they have quite a lot of interaction with humans, and they have a difference to see that how they interact with humans and their opponent, being the quarry in case of a hunting dog, but also being in another dog in case of a canine gladiator. And this has brought the specific type of traits in the Bull&Terrier, which makes it that game. So even if one set of genes is not that interacting, for example that of the bulldog, also those genes of the terrier that also determine some sense of gameness are still kicking in, and because they have been intercrossed quite a bit, also for terrier work but also for canine gladiator work, they took the dogs which had a good click. So it was not such a coincidence that they are clicking very well, because it's a proven cross. Then back to the molosses, which only depend on the molosser type of blood for their gameness, and were not selected for extreme gameness. And why is that? If you look at canine interactions, so in the dog pit, a lot of money was bet. So a dog should not stop even if it was dying, and that meant that they had a very hard dog. They also had stories from the bulldog, which is a main contributor to the Bull&Terrier, that some butchers even cut off a leg of a bulldog, and the bulldog would still clamp onto its perceived opponent, being a bull, being a windmill, whatever. Those are stories that might have a big part of reality in them. So those dogs would go on no matter what, because otherwise bets would be lost. And if you combine dogs that have those traits for multiple generations, you get better and better dogs with each generation for that purpose, of course. Same a little bit with the badgers. if you were a farmer and you had trouble with your chickens or other animals being killed by predators such as foxes or badgers, you would not want them to be escaping. So some terriers were made and bred to have how to say this, to just maintain themselves, so take damage but as little as possible, or sometimes the whiter type of terriers. So to keep the quarry busy but not really get too much damage, and that way you could be used every day, or almost every day. Whereas in some other regions, for example the border region, they had a lot of fell areas, so it would be very hard for humans to interact and to help them out. And also they did not want those bigger foxes that were even capable of killing sheep and badgers to escape. So they bred a dog that would stay with his quarry or try. And those dogs are also extremely game. They also, when they have a quarrel with a bigger dog, the bigger dog might be a Rottweiler or a Shepherd, but they will try their best to stick with them, even though the Rottweiler will easily be 5 times the weight of that Bull&Terrier, for example, and the Shepherd might be 4 times the weight. And sometimes they even win if it takes long enough, because they are such battle-bred specimens. That's not saying that a Rottweiler is not more capable or has not more stopping power or a Shepherd does, but they are very capable for their size, and also especially in their brain, they just don't give up. And if you have those characteristics combined in the Bull&Terrier, you don't have that infusion of those terrier blood in the normal molosses. And bulldogs on themselves are very, very game because they were selected to be, but even the bulldogs were further modified, and the gameness was increased when they had the Bull&Terrier, the real game dog that was there to combat each other. Because the condition, if you're facing, for example, a hawk or whatever, are not as gruesome as if you have to engage another canine gladiator of similar breeding as you are, for as long as it takes. Sometimes it took over 3-4 hours. It's not the normal length of combat that they had, but it could be. So you not only need to have big power and big ability to sustain yourself even under extreme damaging conditions and keep going at it, but also sometimes you need to be able to do that for a prolonged period of times. So also endurance and keeping that pain tolerance up for a longer period of time makes them so extremely game. So the Molosser did not have that because it was not selected that abruptly. Also bulldogs did not have that because they were not selected that abruptly, and that specifically for that combat purposes. And they did not have the infusion of those terriers. And I'm not saying that terriers are more game than bulldogs, but because in my opinion they are not. On average, and when you looked at the working bulldogs of those days, the working terriers, there's also the reason why terriers were infused with bulldog blood. But they had attributes that could help. And also they, for combat, they have their own terrier type of shake that you also see in the Bull&Terrier bloods, also sometimes in bulldogs now. But that is quite capable, especially for example the red pit, it would snap. And that combined with the more power of the bulldog in the mouth could give a dog the ability to do as much damage as possible, also in a small period of time. As I mentioned, sometimes matches between dogs were very long, but of course it would be beneficial if a match would be not so long, because then your dog would not get so much damage. It could be used for another bout easier, and also had a higher chance of surviving. So dogs that were able to do a lot of damage was of course more beneficial than a dog that could take a lot of damage and still keep on going. However, a dog capable of taking all the damage is more game. And you really know that the dog is very game because it just keeps on going. And that's a harder trait to select for. But those combinations made also the harder dogs that would bite extremely hard and do a lot of damage could make a dog more game. And why is that? Because sometimes when they tested their dogs for games, they also had roles with fresh opponents to see if the dog could really go the distance, so that they don't have surprises when they're betting all their money as a working class person on that dog, or their friends were, because also the pride of a person was oftentimes intertwined with that the performance of that dog. Well, I think this video is becoming quite long. I will finish it at this note, wishing you all a great day, and be very grateful that we have such extremely nice dogs that are such capable and people friendly. As I mentioned, even if a dog was damaged that much in the pit, if they would attack a handler of the opponent dogs or their own handler or the referee, they were disqualified, and then also the bet was lost. So that also resulted in the culling of dogs that were not people friendly, and that made the dogs as we know them now extremely people friendly, and also because they have such a high pain tolerance, they are not overacting like many other dog breeds are. Terriers have a similar attribute, a little bit different but similar as I mentioned, because the only one that was on the side was other humans that were digging them out. And also oftentimes in the terrier world, it was not only the handler, the boss who was digging, but also his friends. So I hope this helps. Found no car out, but it was a dog video. Ciao! So another found in a car, and today there was extremely interesting news, because C63 AMG, the new one, no longer has a V8, not the 6-cylinder either, but it has a 4-cylinder. So the 4-cylinder of the AMG A45, and that has normally 408 horsepower, but with the C63 AMG it has 477 horsepower. So not as much as the former C63 AMG had, 510 horsepower from its internal combustion engine. But it also has electric support, which makes the complete power and torque of this C63 AMG 610 horsepower. 610 horsepower and 1100 newton meters of torque. So, for your reference, in the past you had, for example, McLaren F1, which had 620 horsepower. A really super sports car, and it did not have that torque. It would have, for example, 660 newton meters of torque. So almost half the torque and only 10 horsepower more than the C63 AMG. And the C63 AMG is a turbo engine, so you could even extract quite a lot more horsepower by a simple chip tune, which I would not recommend in this case. And why is that? If you look at this power source, it was only 2 liter, 477 horsepower-ish from 2 liter, results that you have like 237, 238 about horsepower per liter. This is enormous, gigantic, and if you would tweak that even more, you would have gains. I can imagine gains, but also you would put additional stress on the engine, which is already high strung if you look at the specific output per liter. So perhaps it would be a nice idea. It is a good possibility, of course, but I would be further down the line before I would do it, if I would be an owner of that type of car, because the reserves of that engine are, in my opinion, already extremely stretched. It's the highest performance per liter I can imagine from all the cars that I know. If you only look at the ICE internal combustion engine that are achievable or semi-achievable for us mortals. So great news, really anticipating this. Also this combination with electric engine is there for performance, not so much for frugality. And you can also see because the batteries are kept small, so they only have an all electric range of 30 kilometers, which can be beneficial for the quick groceries, but not for the real forensic stuff, getting to and from work, for example. Oftentimes it will not be sufficient. It's nice because it will decrease the fuel consumption also on paper, and that will result in less taxes in many geographic regions. So good move from Mercedes. On the other hand, it's a pity because the V8 was such a very cool and nice engine to begin with. It started with 6.2, 6.3 liters, and therefore also the name. In the later stage, it was already replaced with an engine that was still V8 but significantly smaller, about 4 to 4.4 liter displacement V8, but now they are going to 2 liter, so a 4-cylinder instead of an 8-cylinder. And yeah, this is such an enormous step to have such a powerful 4-cylinder. I knew in the past that, for example, a Mitsubishi FQ400 that was able to keep pace with the Lamborghini. I think it was what the Lamborghini was. I think it was the Gallardo of the time, and it was so much bigger, stronger type of car you could imagine, but it did not have this 4-wheel drive system. It did not have the low weight that the Lancer did have. So this car will be very capable, also because the nose can be a little bit lighter if you are not having that big V8 in the nose anymore, so that the tucking into a corner could be more crisp. And of course the batteries will weigh, but you can place them strategically and oftentimes are in the center of the car, so that will also increase the balance between front and rear and the weight distribution there. So very good things. Hope this helps to keep you up to date. Found my car out. So another foundry car. Now I'm sitting in a traffic jam, and that brings me to the point. What would I recommend if you're going from work to home and from home to work to travel in a forensic situation? You're traveling and you try to get there as soon as possible and also have the convenience that you are needing. So in my opinion, a car has a lot of pros versus a motorcycle, being that you're sheltered, you're very safe, you're also in a little bit of a protective cage, you can take a lot of stuff with you, and you're shielded from the rain. Also when you step out of your car, you just have to click your key button and it's closed. Whereas with a motorcycle you have to get down and also get the keys of the locks in place. So it takes a little bit more time. And once you get off of your motorcycle, you also have to oftentimes get into different type of clothes, because you are driving with protective clothes and gloves, a helmet. And the same is also the other way around. When you get on the motorcycle, you have to gear up. So that results that you have to put stuff on or off you 4 times a day, and you have to lock or unlock your vehicle with chains, etc. Also, oftentimes 4 times a day. If you cannot store the motorcycle inside of a garage, for example. But even when you do, oftentimes an insurance company will demand that you still lock it there as well. So please keep it into consideration. So if it's bad weather, you will also get soaked a lot more. That makes it harder. If it's very good weather, you get very hot, especially because you have all the protective clothing, and if you cannot drive as fast as possible to cool you down. So those are the facts that are describing the motorcycle car dynamic in favor of the car, but there are also things to take into consideration in favor of the motorcycle. One being, motorcycles are often cheaper than cars. There's not that much of a difference for many enthusiasts, but if you look at the performance that you're getting with a motorcycle of 20,000 euros, you will be in the range of a car that costs 5 times that much, is also performance based, oftentimes even significantly faster, because motorcycles are so light and quite powerful for their weight. Another thing to consider is that the motorcycles oftentimes, if not always, rear wheel drive, and you only have 2 patches that are contacting the road, which gives you less drag and thereby oftentimes better fuel economy, also because they are so light, but also those contact patches are easier disturbed. For example, a little bit of oil on the road and then you get catapulted into something, especially because you don't have a cage, protective cage around you. You are the cage. You only have your helmet and your protective gear to do some damage control. So that's a big difference as well. But I was talking about the benefits of motorcycle driving, and the benefits is that it's cheaper to enter. So you, even with a few thousand euros, you can buy a new motorcycle that is not very powerful, not very capable, but will be very cheap and also frugal. And a very frugal motorcycle will keep the costs down as well. Also, maintenance on motorcycles is often cheaper than that of cars. Mostly it is, also because it's easier to access, less complex, and also less to be done, of course. And another thing is that you will be there faster in many situations, especially if the roads are blocked. So you have traffic jams with a motorcycle, you can just weave through them. Also, when there is there's a stop or something is, they are building something, or there is it's hard that you have to go partly over another road. For example, one road is closed because they do some maintenance. The motorcycle can easily squeeze in. Also with parking, motorcycle can always be parked, so to say. And a motorcycle can often also be parked free of charge, which is a big benefit as well, of course. So that will save you cost again. A motorcycle can only seat 2 people, car oftentimes more, so for your own purpose, when you're not driving for work, oftentimes motorcycles are not that well suited for family life at least. But if you're alone or you're a couple, you can still manage to put 2 people on a motorcycle. You see in some other countries, for example India, that they have entire families on motorcycles. So a lot of things can be done, but it's also not safe, and it's not made to do that. Motorcycles can be a lot of fun because you feel a lot more engaged, you're more part of your environment, you will feel the wind engaging with you, also the forces, the friction with the air, and you will also go into corners like this. You will dive into corners, you will lay a lot more flat than you will do with your car. If you're doing it right, at least. And that makes it really engaging and really more an experience. Also, your mind will be turned off for external things, so you can really shut them down and really be in the here and now with a motorcycle a lot more, which is a benefit. The drawback is that if you need to do something while driving, a car will be far more suited. You can even have a laptop close by. You can easier stop and just look at your laptop or your phone and do something, have some text messages, then when you have to do it on a motorcycle. They have some gloves that are touchpad friendly, so that you can use them on your phone or whatever. So there are some improvements also on the motorcycle department. Hope this short analysis will help you decide. Perhaps you can have both, then you have the best of both worlds. But perhaps you also are looking, should I go one direction or the other? And I have a driving license of both, and I'm an enthusiast of both. So I hope this really helps. For me, the choice was, because I'm also a family man, to get rid of the motorcycle and get a convertible. So now I have an Abarth 595C, so it's convertible, you still have the air influences. And you can share it with your family because it seats 4, even my children, which are quite big for their age. And you can still sit in there. I can even sit behind myself. It is not comfortable for my legs that much, but the headroom is still okay. Even with the roof closed, you will just touch it a little bit, but it's not a big deal. This is different than, for example, a 911. And the Abarth gives you a lot of nice experience, but that you can also share with your family. It's a lot more practical, but will not be as fast. So I'm still, I started this video because I was in a traffic jam, and I'm still in a traffic jam. So would I be on a motorcycle, I would be long gone and would just interweave between everything and be done with it, which you cannot do with a car because you're not allowed to. Your car is far too wide and not capable of doing so. If you're look at motorcycles and you want to have as much practicality as possible, you could look at a Grand Tourer type of motorcycle because they have quite a lot of luggage capacity. But the easier bet, and in my opinion even better, would be a motorcycle scooter, a maxi scooter. They have a scooter that's quite capable and powerful, that can even handle the highway quite easily, even with 2 passengers. It has a lot of storage room beneath the saddle. It's automatic, so easy shifting. You don't have to do anything in that department, and still protects you quite well against the elements. Hope this helps. Foundering car out.